Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today we're going to be talking about politics and specifically layered communication and how right now within politics, I think it's very clear that the idea of layered communication, even with as much attention as there is on politics, that the approach to forming a layered communication plan for individual politicians, especially the 2020 Democratic primary candidates, is incredibly novice. It's that we really aren't looking at layered communication in a mature, robust way yet, right? And that we're really at a very shallow end of the pool when it comes to communicating with politicians, getting a message across with any of the politicians that are, I think we're still really at the rank amateur stage, right? And I recently saw an event which really made me think of this very clearly, and I heard some analysis, and I want to share it with you. So specifically, Aziz, last year in 2018, Aziz Ansari, who is an actor who was on Parks and Recreation, he's also a stand-up comedian, basically had a situation where someone wrote an article and said that Aziz Ansari had treated that person very, very poorly, right? And once that article came out, Aziz Ansari went into a zone where there was a big question in the industry whether he should be hired for movies, television, or any stand-up, right? And it was a very serious impact to his career, right? It seemed like it was definitely a moment of reflection, right? So there was a question on whether Aziz Ansari would return to film, to television, to stand-up. Well, Netflix just about a week ago put up Aziz Ansari Right Now, which is 1 hour of stand-up from Aziz Ansari. As soon as I saw it, I was like, okay, I want to watch that, and I had no intention of watching it as an hour of stand-up, because it really wasn't an hour of stand-up. It was a person who had a very serious impact to their career, who was seeing if they could return to their career, right? And I think a lot of people were watching this particular hour of stand-up with that in mind, saying, is this a template for how people who have had problems with their career would be able to return from those problems, right? And so I watched it, and I was watching it from that perspective to say, okay, how is this being attempted? What are the tactics and strategies being used by Aziz Ansari? And I'm a little ashamed to say, I watched it and I was like, okay, I see a little bit of what he was doing there, but I was really sucked in, and I laughed at some of the jokes, and I really just saw Aziz Ansari presenting himself and jumping over a hurdle, right? And then I listened to the breakdown that's the Slate pod. So Slate, they own a whole bunch of podcasts, and one of their podcasts is called The Waves. And The Waves is a podcast that is focused on gender issues. Okay, and they did an entire they did an episode where they discussed Aziz Ansari's Right Now hour of stand-up. And there were, 4 specific people who were involved in that podcast. It was Christina Cauterucci, there was June Thomas, there was Marcia Chaitlin, and there was Nicole Perkins. And all of them were discussing this situation, right? And they did a level of analysis that I was just absolutely stunned by. I missed the vast majority of the things that they saw, right? But their analysis of what had been put on film and what that hour really was and what it contained, I was absolutely blown away. And so I want to, and it really, and once I had heard it, I'm like, there's a lot that reflects on, there's a lot that is pertinent to modern politics here, right? So here's what the Waves podcasters talked about. So one, they pointed out that if you listen carefully, you would not hear Aziz Ansari actually apologize, right, for the situation that happened, right? They're saying that if you looked at the words, there really was no apology, right? But if you looked at everything else, there were 3 other vectors that were showing apology and showing contrition, right? The first was that Aziz Ansari, the director for this special, was Spike Jonze, like major director, major film director, right? And Spike Jonze shot Aziz Ansari with this harsh white police lighting, right? Like he was under the microscope, right? Like he was bared for inspection, right? And I was like, wow, yeah, that's environment, right? So there was a layer of communication there that was happening with environment, right? And then the next one was the Waves podcasters talked about his attire, right? And they compared his attire, his clothing, what he wore, what Aziz Ansari wore for this hour special compared to his last hour special, right? And I had seen Aziz Ansari's last hour special, and they were 100% right. So in the last hour special before Aziz Ansari right now, he was dressed in this really, pure Mac suit, like jet black, shiny, like a little bit of satin in there, cufflinks, patent leather shoes, just, looked very, very on his game, right? Top notch, right? But in Aziz Ansari's right now, he was dressed in a t-shirt, literally a t-shirt, jeans, and basic sneakers, very basic, nondescript sneakers, right? Almost, and as soon as I was like, oh my gosh, right? I read Game of Thrones, I remember Cersei's Walk of Shame, and I thought, oh my gosh, that's sackcloth, right? Like, they were kind of presenting him in sackcloth, and I was like, wow, that, again, it's showing apology and contrition, right? Again, the Waves podcast are so brilliant. Their analysis on this was so brilliant. The next thing they pointed out was that Aziz Ansari was specifically, right, the way he moved, right? In the last, in the hour-long special before Aziz Ansari right now, he was very bold. He strutted around the stage. There was almost kind of like a lion, a lion moving around on the plains, kind of a movement to him, like almost like it was very bold, right? In this one, his movement, his posture was slouched. He moved very slowly, and for a large portion of the hour, he actually just sat on a stool, right? And again, the posture was kind of, inward and, kind of crouched and slouched. And I was like, holy cows, again, the motion was showing apology, was showing contrition. I was like, wow, so once I had gotten done, listening to the Waves and listening to these brilliant women break down what had really been shown, right? They were breaking it down. Like, there was no literal word apology. So the words were not carrying an apology, right? But the environment was carrying an apology. The attire was carrying an apology. And the motion was carrying an apology. That's four layers of communication, right? And when I heard this and when I thought about it, I was like, holy cows, you know what I mean? When you looked at that last debate, right, it was very clear to me that what's happening with these candidates, right, is they have a team, right, and they have somebody who's like, we need to do everything we can to make this candidate look good. And one, the environment is not new. Everybody knows that environment is important, and so positioning on the stage and lighting, that's known, okay? And I think there are campaign managers like, make sure that the positioning is right, make sure that the lighting is right, make sure that that our candidate is in the environment the way we want, right? That's not new. That's already covered within politics. The words are very much covered in politics. There is a strong tradition of speechwriters, right? And almost every word that is said in the debates, that will be said in the debates on July 30th and July 31st, it's going to be highly orchestrated. It's going to be, all that material will be done and finished and actually ready well before the debates, right? But there's two layers that I think right now, they're tasks given to someone on the team, okay? How how the candidate moves. Andrew Yang, of course, he's my main number one candidate, and I really think his motion, how he moved, how he stood, right? Even standing at a podium, there's motion, right? And like Cory Booker, that's another one. He had this really, he had this expression on his face. There were no words given, but his expression showed his sentiment, right? So literally how you stand, when you move onto the stage, when you move off of the stage, if you point, if you don't point, exactly where your shoulders are, right? If you move when you're asked a question, if you take a step back, right? If you step to the side at the podium, every single motion carries a message. Is that message, and with many of these candidates, in my opinion right now, when it comes to motion, the message is not connected to their main message, right? It is not a carefully orchestrated message the way the words are, right? The way, and it's not as carefully orchestrated as controlling the environment, right? So motion, and then clothing. Politics are absolutely horrible at clothing. They put almost every single male candidate is just put into a suit. That suit is gray, black, or blue, and you got some slacks and done, right? The clothes are horrendous, absolutely horrendous, right? And and especially I think for male candidates, there's virtually nothing that that attire is really not carrying any real message. Now, Andrew Yang in the last debate, he did choose to not wear a tie, which I thought was really helpful. I thought that he was saying, hey, we as a nation are leaving neck nooses behind, right? And I thought that was really, I really liked that, right? But the reality is, it is my opinion that right now, right, candidates that have $5 to $10 million or less, right, they have to just do what they can, right? But when you get to the point where you have 10 to 50 million, or what if you have 50 million to 500 million dollars, right? When you hit that level, I think that there should be a new level of attention on communication for all the politicians on the 2020 Democrat primary stage, right? And that is an entire team, right? And that team could be as small as one specific person, or it could be as many as 5 people, right? And you should have specific teams for your motion, for your attire, for your environment, and for your words, right? Now, right now, I think that there are several campaigns that have one or more people that are absolutely dedicated to the words. Of course, that's already there, right? I think there are other campaigns that have one or more people just that have no other job than controlling the environment. But I don't think there are any of the 2020 U.S. primary candidates that have an entire team dedicated to motion and have an entire team dedicated to attire, right? And after listening the breakdown that the Waves commentators had on Aziz Ansari right now, I'm like, that was very strong proof that words, motion, attire, right? All these things can very, very clearly carry a message, a very clear message. The environment, the attire, the words, the motions, each one of these is a very, very strong vector for a distinct and unique message, right? Now, you can bring them into harmony when you want, right? And you can bring them into dissonance when you want, right? But you better know what you're doing, and you don't want to leave 2 of these just flapping in the breeze. And that's what's happening right now, all right? I think it's very clear that the vast majority, if not all, of the 2020 candidates are allowing their motion and are allowing their attire to just flap in the breeze. And those vectors are not controlled. They're not controlled at a dedicated team level. And to me, basically, U.S. presidency is king or queen of the world. That's what's at stake, right? And when you have that, you had darn well better have an entire team dedicated to every single one of those vectors: environment, words, motion, right, and attire. Every single one needs a dedicated team. That's my opinion. I'd love to hear your opinion. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful millennium.